You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. It is Friday, episode number 78.
Unbelievable.
Kristina, we made it. We made it through to Friday. Can you believe it?
I do believe it because we're here. Very much so.
I do believe
close.
it as well. Isn't this crazy? Going live to you earlier in the morning now. Excited about the new format change. I really am.
I am too. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully it will speak to everyone.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us on all the platforms that you join us on. This is episode 78.
Wow.
And it is brought to you by the Recovered Life contributors and viewers like you. So if you are listening to this, you made this episode happen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. So Friday, we're here.
Yes, we are.
It seems just absolutely hard to believe that we made it all the way through to the Friday. Oh, I think we just... had a little technical glitch there. Sorry. We made it all the way through to Friday. And Kristina and I were talking about this episode and what we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And we have a bunch of interesting stuff. We have 2 segments today.
Yay.
They're going to be absolutely great. It's going to be really, really good. We always do TGIFSober.
Yes.
At the second part of the show. But for episode 78, we wanted to start it out with this very interesting Wall Street Journal article,
isn't it?
That Kristina found. Kristina, it's saying what everybody in the recovery community is talking about.
Totally.
But no one really says it. So set this up a little bit.
Sure.
What this article is about.
It is out of the Wall Street Journal, and the premise, the lens of it is the business part of recovery. And we know there's a lot of money in recovery, rehabs, counseling, all the different things. But this is a new phenomenon. We talked about this week about gray area drinkers. And there are a lot of for-profit programs coming out. And it's designed for the gray area drinker. And I think it's probably designed more for somebody who doesn't want to call themselves an alcoholic, but needs to stop drinking. Of course, at the beginning of the article, they talk about how drinking has come up, which we share about in our last episode. Mm-hmm. The numbers are skyrocketing. And generally, most of the programs are geared toward women. And for that reason, I guess they feel like it's a safer space for them to come. They're all online. I'm assuming good programs, because I actually know people who have gotten sober this way. And they're not necessarily, what I love about this article is it doesn't necessarily be despairing to AA, but the main difference is that a lot of people are attracted to this program because of the label alcoholic. They do not want to be called alcoholics, but they are, in fact, getting sober. And some of the programs allow for moderation. And I think you and I had this conversation maybe in dry January. If you drank the way I drank, there was no such word as moderation. Don't you agree?
Okay, well, yes, I totally agree. And I have to tell you, when you wanted to do this article, when you wanted to talk about this article, and I started to read it, I was like, wow, there's a huge business in getting sober.
Totally.
And I think that's where a lot of people have problems with this.
Yes.
Is that, there may be this whole idea of telling people that they're not alcoholic, but they're drinking themselves to death.
Yes.
I find that curious. Ultimately, I'm a little jaded, I think. I'm going to be honest with you. And for those of you guys on the watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on Facebook, Twitter, or now Instagram TV, we just added Instagram TV today to our live stream. If you're watching us there, I want to let you know that that I brought this up on the screen here, so you could actually see the article, and I'm going to put a link here so everybody can actually see this and read it for themselves. But I have to tell you, there's a lot of good stuff here.
Yes.
Let me tell you what I do like about this, Kristina, what you brought up. is I like the whole awareness thing that
Yes.
people might have a problem because it slows people down. It stops people from killing themselves.
Sure.
Let's be honest, right?
And that matters.
Stops people.
Right.
It matters. It does
It
matter.
matters.
It does matter. Now, the whole thing about this gray area drinking, we've talked about this crossing the line,
Right.
not crossing the line. This is kind of a mysterious thing. And I think people know if they have,
Right.
for the most part. I mean, I guess, do you think that there's still people out there that feel like, oh, like they maybe can't be honest with themselves? Like, hey,
truly,
across the line, alcohol's not good for me.
Right. And I think people are surprised. We talked about this with Dry January. Sometimes they're really surprised at how much the alcohol calls to them. So I agree with you. It's nice to have these kind of programs available and to people and to allow them to start exploring the conversation. And it appears in many of the groups, they talked about the naked mind. They talked about
naked men and naked mind.
Yeah, naked mind, and we are the luckiest, and Temptus. And it's very, very interesting because it appears to me to kind of mimic AA in regards to the support group and the support of the groups. So I have to say, somebody who gets sober through the Temptus or another program, great. I don't think that AA has the cornerstone, but I'm curious, why in some of the groups, and in fact, I read one of the books, she was pretty rough on AA. And I felt like maybe she didn't investigate it enough, because to me, it seemed like she was saying exactly the things that I needed to learn in AA. But they take a scientific approach, which can be really helpful. It takes away the shame. And I believe, I should say, though, shaming the word alcoholic seems to be, counterintuitive. If all are accepted, then I don't understand why, in one of the rooms, the Temptus rooms, there was a lot of hate being thrown at AA. And I was really surprised. I was also surprised.
Well, I will tell you why I think that is. Okay.
Tell me.
And this is my personal opinion. And, being involved with 12-step groups, I think sometimes and we won't name them, but Orange County has one of these groups that is, kind of a cult of personality a lot.
Sure.
And I think that, 12-step could be different where you're at, right? Like,
true.
I think 12-step is a little different where you're at. Now, the principles aren't, the 12-step in origin aren't, but the personalities behind it. And I think when you have something that's more centrally located, centrally administered, okay, which 12-step is not. Like, a lot of these, we talk a little bit about ACOA, we talk about A, we talk about all these other different things, right? They're not. It's not necessarily, there are some principles coming, but it's not as organized in that way. These groups are organized in that way, and they're coming from a person. So I think that, and I also think that this whole stigma of an alcoholic, I just went through it last weekend.
Really?
Where a lot of people were drinking, and I still have that. I think I have it because I'm a Gen Xer.
Okay.
Kristina, like, I think I have it because I'm a Gen Xer. And I think our generation still has, it's like, oh, why don't you drink? Oh, I'm in recovery or whatever.
True.
Not that I've only ever really gotten someone really giving me a hard time that had an addiction problem.
There you go. They didn't like seeing the mirror and
it's always people that have addiction problems that do. Now, in early recovery, that messed me up. Now it doesn't. I don't even care now.
It's interesting that you say that, because there is a woman that they interview in this article where she talks about, to me, an alcoholic was somebody who had lost their job, their home, their family, and was living on the streets. And I still believe this as an interventionist, that hurts us, that there many, many more people would decide not to drink if they didn't have to have the shame attached to it, and many people would have gotten help a lot sooner if we didn't, as a country. I'm not sure how it is in other parts of the world, but in this country, if we didn't have this shame attached to the fact that, it is very, very, very bad for me to consume alcohol. And so I really wish that would change.
Here's the thing. When we talk about gray area drinking, I think it really kind of falls into two camps, right?
Okay.
There's this, I do believe personally, as someone who is an alcoholic, recovered alcoholic, I do believe that there are people who have addiction issues, which
Right.
is a medical issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Addiction issues, and they have an addiction issue. They treat that medical issue. They become not addicted to painkillers, okay,
Yes.
or whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Oh, I threw my back out. I got addicted to a painkiller, and now I've gotten off that painkiller. Can I not go have a beer or something at a Christmas party,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
do. I've met those people. Like, I know people who are like that, right? Like,
Right.
and so to say that everybody that has an addiction issue in their life, maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're addicted to food, maybe you're addicted to people. Look, you're a codependency coach. There are people
Exactly.
addicted to people that still use people. There's addicted to food that still eat food. So
True.
there are people who just have addiction issues. They clean up. It's
Yes.
over. Their life
Uh-huh.
goes on. I always say this is like the alcoholics and drug addicts and really hardcore codependents and people who have gambling problems. When they get sober, that's when the hard part starts. That's when everything falls apart, when they get sober.
Exactly.
Like, there might be a lot of wreckage around the medical side of it. And they have the medical side too, right? We had the medical
Right.
side too.
Right.
But it's when they get sober, when they stop using it, that's when everything falls apart. I think that's
Absolutely.
really what makes you an alcoholic versus a non-alcoholic. I think that's one of those elements.
It's so true. I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm going to think about that a little bit longer. I when I first heard this, I have to be honest, I was a little cynical and I was confused. Why would you pay money when you can go to AA for free? And since then, I've started to pull back because there also are groups that are not for profit, and I don't have any ill will. They are obviously providing a service that people want and
Yeah.
are using. So everybody wins in this situation. But my original thought was, wow, you pay for this. This is surprising to me.
Yeah.
And then obviously I'm a coach. So I've had to kind of really figure out how I stand on this issue and what works. And I realize sometimes people need more. In AA, it literally says, of this we know very little. Page 164 in the big book talks about you will need more support. You will need more investigation. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm grateful that they're having the conversation. I'm also a little surprised that I didn't even know that it was happening. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because in the recovery world, it's big.
Well, I'll tell you this. Here is one of the things for that I think is 100% about this. And one of the things about AA, no AA, I have never heard, Kristina, the amount of talk about AA or no AA in my whole recovery over decades.
Me neither.
This is a pivotal time for 12 steps. And you know me, I just use the word AA. On episodes, I don't use the word.
No.
Because, and people ask why, because I come from that generation where it's not to be named. Okay.
True.
Now, I don't really think it ever said, and I'm going to get some, look, I'm going to get some big
I know.
numbers that are going to just hit this thread. And they're going to say Damon in paragraph 5, whatever, in Bill's first book or his note when he put on a gum wrapper, he said
true.
whatever. But you have to look at it
Gum
for
wrapper.
today. First, and I've gotten, by the way, I'm gonna share a little bit about my personal information, my personal story with 12-step groups. When I started going outside of 12-step groups, and when I started Recovered Life, I have to tell you, I've been really honest with you. When I started Recovered Life, I got attacked.
Yes, I
by
understand.
some hardcore people that even had less time than I did, but were entrenched like I was in these 12-step groups. And I found it very culty. I'm going to tell you, I find some of these things, and you know what? And I got pegged. I got labeled. I got tokenized as somebody who hated 12-step groups.
Which you don't, obviously.
Oh my God, no. Like,
No,
anyone who knows me, I
you
don't
love
do
it.
that. I got it the other day from a friend that says, oh, this guy won't talk to you anymore, I was really close to. He's like, because he thinks that you hate 12-step groups. And I'm like, what? You got to be kidding me.
Does he watch the show? He
right? Exactly.
That's
I'm a huge fan of that. And it totally saved my ass several decades ago. So, but I think you do have that. I think it's starting to split into two camps. And I think I'm noticing it in my private peer groups.
Wow.
When we have like groups of fellowship of 5 to 10 people, which we sometimes can only do online,
Yes.
over half of the conversation was maybe it's gone. Maybe this will never come
Wow.
back, right?
I hope not. I hope not. My home group has stayed intact, but it's not, it's certainly, I think that the big, huge meetings that, specifically the one that was in Orange County, it has, stopped. And I think I've shared this before. My husband attended a very large meeting, 100 people, 7 days a week. It was one of those standard meetings, and now it's down to 15, 20. So I'm grateful that these programs are out there for people. I think it's still an entry point, and I still believe strongly that if you are going to stay sober, you have to have a spiritual awakening, whatever that's called. And what I noticed in the people, I have very good friends that attend the Luckiest Club, that got sober in a group together that was designed to stop the madness. They, they love it. They're getting the support they need, and that works. But I also see them in rooms in Clubhouse and getting more. So in that way, I'm not really sure it's that different than AA. It just is a total shift in perspective.
Well,
right?
I'll tell you where I think it is different. And I think this is the dangerous part. I'm always the nervous Nancy about this.
Yes.
This is a dangerous part that I see about some of these things that were mentioned in the Wall Street Journal article. And, I thought that, I think her name is Ann Turgeson, did a great job on this. But
Yes.
I think that I think, and I don't know if I don't think it said if she was sober or not sober.
It didn't. No,
But
she didn't.
I will tell you the dangerous thing about this is telling alcoholics that they can drink like non-alcoholics. I think is, look, do we have this about strawberries? Do we have partial clubs?
No,
about
exactly.
Like, well,
peanut butter.
I'm kind of allergic to peanat butter.
Yeah, so
but
I
I
get a
can
spoonful.
still eat peanut. This is what makes me think that makes me like, I could see just people, if you've ever worked with a real alcoholic, and when I know people don't like that thing, but real with the capital R, you can't drink.
Absolutely.
Socially.
We call it doing research, right? In the program, when somebody goes out and decides.
Exactly.
And it's pretty quickly understood, if you drink the way that I drink, that it's not going to work. It will never work again, and that's okay.
And
so I like
you
that.
Want to. And why would, and this is the other thing about the thinking part of alcoholism, which these programs seem to address, right? Why would you want to?
What does it do? Right. What does it do?
Why would you almost die? Or it's so bad that you have to pay to go to some sort of program or rehab. True. But now all of a sudden you think, hey, it's a great idea. I want that's alcoholic in nature, if you ask me.
Well, and it's miserable. I do belong to a food program that is the 12-step variety. And one thing that I learned through this food program was, as you said, we still eat food, was that sugar is a huge no-no for me. And because I was abstinent from sugar, the idea of having a cookie sounded like it was okay. And I don't demonize food. I don't think it's a moral issue whatsoever, just like alcohol. But I remember having one cookie. And because of my sugar addiction, I wanted 10, not just one, or 20. And I remember the pain of not having it. And I had to recognize that once I ingested that sugar, immediately I wanted more. And it's incredibly painful. So it's just better for me, for my nervous system, not to partake at all.
I had a rough week, Kristina. I had 4 cookies yesterday, and they were a big one. They were the big shout out to, not a sponsor, but shout out to the Costco chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, they have good
bakeries yesterday. They do. But no, I get what you're saying. And I think the thing that I don't like about this, and I know I'm looking right now on the live stream. There's people from Greece actually that are going in their comments.
Hi.
So shout out to everybody that's listening there. But I have to tell you, there's going to be comments on this. It's the same thing when we did remember the Stacey Danford episode?
Yes.
That I did about character defects. I got a lot of that too. But I thought, as a hardcore old school guy as I am,
yes,
I agreed with that. Like, the character defects weren't good. So I do think there are a group of people. I think there are good. So let's sum this up here as we get to the end of the segment here. I personally believe, and I want to hear what you that my data of just me living
Yes.
and seen this for a while. I do believe that there's a large group of people out there that are great drinkers. They haven't maybe crossed the line. Maybe they
Right.
have. They're somewhere on the line, right? They're definitely drinking or using drugs alcoholically. But they maybe don't have all of those components, and
True.
this maybe pulls them back.
Yes.
But I'm going to put the giant BUT in there. But I think those people could cross the line 15 days, 5 days, a year after
Right.
going to some of these programs, right?
Yes.
So that's the thing that I find, and they didn't really get the message that, hey, you can't drink socially.
Right. And ultimately what it comes down to, which is one of the main reasons Recover Life here, is that alcohol is dangerous. It is a very volatile substance for our brain, for our physicality, for our nervous system. And it's a mechanism that will grow the more you drink. And so I think if that's the message, that's being sent out, good. Because I do want that. And whatever works for you, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. Whatever works for you, works for you. And I'm happy that you're finding it however you need to. But most important, if alcohol has affected your life negatively, then get some support, get some help, put it down.
Great segment. This is a great segment. Thanks so much for finding that article.
You're welcome.
Really, I think, this might help some people that are listening that are on that gray area. I mean, I think, that final message thought here, to end the segment is that, if you don't want to admit that you are an alcoholic, right? And that's the thing that's really getting you.
Yes.
And a program like this helps you.
Go for it. Yeah.
Go for it. Go for it. If it helps during that transition to help figure it out, and you're really, really stuck on that. I know I was really stuck on that.
You were.
I didn't want to, oh my God, huge. Like I was in my 20s. I didn't want to, that meant the end of my world, right? Like did not, Kristina, I did not want to be that guy, right? I just didn't.
I didn't either. And then eventually there was no way weighing the pros and cons that for me in the way I drank, that I wasn't that girl. I absolutely was. So because we're having such a great conversation, I want to tell all the people that are watching how to support the show. Make sure you follow, and share so that we can add more people to this conversation. This show is for you. And it's based on what we think you want to hear, but leave a comment and let us know what kind of subject you'd like to talk about. Also, what you think about it. We want to continue to promote this conversation. And if you are not a member of the Recovered Life Network, make sure you join. It's completely free for anybody who's interested in recovery or in recovery. Sober Curious, completely welcomed. It's at recoveredlife.us because the US stands for us. So make sure you join the conversation and support us so we can continue to do these kinds of episodes.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, Kristina. Really, like I said at the very beginning, the show is brought to you by the Recovered Life contributors and listeners like you.
Yes.
And it's true because by liking, sharing, and following the show, even if you're on a look, if you're on any of the streaming services and you're listening to this in audio, just reaching out and hitting that button, making a small comment. Hey, I like the show, passing it to a friend. It really helps us because we're able to get the message out. And just like what we were saying, Kristina, about these people who are gray area drinkers, somebody might not feel even comfortable going to a group like was mentioned in the Wall Street Journal article.
Yes.
They might only listen to this show. That might be their only avenue of recovery. And we want to give people solutions and options.
We sure do. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. So as we go out of this segment after the break, we're going to come back. We have got a TGIF Sober, which we do every Friday. So after the break, we will see you there. Hold on for this small little transition. We're coming back with TGIF Sober.
Woo!
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show.
That's cool.
And we are back. We're back. Kristina Dennis. Great episode so far. We talked about gray area drinking.
Truly.
We talked about, now we're going to TGIF Sober, which we do every Friday, which is actually my favorite segment of the show.
It
I
is.
like it.
And
Yeah.
even though I work on the weekends, there's something about Friday. I'm an empathetic
There is.
person and I'm sensitive, and in the, the universe, almost everybody. We know the kids don't go to school, and most people do get the weekends off. Some do, I guess I should say. I'm not sure exactly, but it feels better and lighter. So I love Fridays too.
Well, you know what? It's interesting is Fridays give me, I'm a weekend worker too.
Mhm.
I'm what do they call a binge? I'm a binge worker. Excuse
You
an
are.
addiction term. I am.
You are.
Like, I've realized that I'm somebody who likes to work in these like spurts where it's like, oh, 5 days, 6 days,
Yes.
14 days straight, right? I work alcoholically, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a little bit, I would
Yeah,
say,
a little
as the
bit,
person
but
who receives
yeah.
the texts.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for taking those texts, by the way. But one of the things I'm gonna tell you is like, coming back from this is that when I look at Fridays now, I'm looking at Recovered Life and
Yes.
saying, as far as we've gotten, we started a couple weeks ago saying we're going to do several shows a week.
Yes.
And I think we got 2 or 3 out that first week. And then we had a holiday this week,
That's
which
right.
we, thank God, took off. Right.
Mhm.
It was good. And we love doing the show, but it's a lot of work, right? It's a
It is.
lot of work.
It is.
So, plus the Recovered Life community, and we've got all these clubhouse rooms that we do
They're so
on
good, though.
recovery and all the contributors that help us, and
It's
amazing.
I love
But
it.
I look back and I look at Kristina, I'm like going, wow, 2 weeks. We've gone from doing an episode, a pre-recorded episode, to now going live
I know.
and having all of these guys. We got a lot of stuff, so if you're not liking, following, and share us, do that, because we got a lot of contributors coming up, a lot of great interviews in the next 30
Sure
days.
do.
It's going to be
Sure do.
amazing. But I look back and I say, wow, you know what? Sometimes you have to just appreciate the fact that, one, you were able to make it through, and two, look at everything that we've accomplished.
It's amazing. And it is a heart project for me. I know it's a heart project for you too. And being able to kind of visit that on Friday, one of the things that's super important is that, we look at the progress. And this goes to everyone who's watching, everybody. So often the goal, which is a dopamine, based kind of work, once we hit the goal, we can kind of like, oh, okay, what do I do next? Because that dopamine is gone. But when you track your progress, it's called the progress principle. You can get it on a TED Talk if you want to look at it. When you track your progress, that's actually what promotes happiness, is looking at how far you've come. So I'm glad that we're doing it live on the show, because we're showing people this is what you do. And we want people to grow with us and see the transition and the transformation.
Well, this week we had a lot of transformation. I have to tell you, Monday, I was out Monday. You did the Monday show.
I did.
On Clubhouse. And, let me mention this real quick before you go into what we talked about Monday.
Okay.
But anybody who does not know, Clubhouse, the social audio app, we're very big there, Recovered Life.
So cool.
We've got 4 shows a week at 9 a.m. That Kristina and I split off. And
9 a.m. Pacific. Make sure you tell them.
Right. 9 a.m. Pacific. And I'm going to get a graphic for that next week so we can have that. So people can show up. But all you have to do is actually go into Clubhouse and hit the Recovered Life, and it will come up.
It
and
will.
You can join and get notified when we do these. But every week, every day, pretty much, we have these. And Monday, we do something called This Week in Recovered Life, which is the opposite of TGIFSober.
It is. We started up.
Yeah.
We do. And this Monday we did our intentions, and it was so amazing to listen to other people share their intentions, because I was like, oh yeah, I want to add that too. Oh yeah, I want to do that as well. And being able to sit down in that Monday room, and you usually bring some good topics. I wasn't as great a host as you usually are, but Monday.
Oh, come on. You were awesome.
Monday,
like, thank God Kristina's here.
So we did sit down and think about our intentions. And so often this is not a practice that we take. We don't think about it. At least I should say I didn't think about it. Whenever I was in crisis or busy, I never sat down and said, okay, what do I want to do this week that has something to do with me? I think that I asked people to share something that they're going to do for themselves this week that's for fun and for free. I borrowed that from my, Al-Anon group, and very difficult to think about that. If you have been going like me, how do you think about something to do that doesn't and isn't attached to productivity? But
I like that.
that's where our lives are. That's what
I
we
like
really
that and
enjoy.
the transactional thing. We're going to do a show about that.
Hmm.
Transactional relationships, right?
So true. So
Like
true.
everything, like I don't have a relationship unless it's transactional and
Right.
the doing. I love that. So what were some of the intentions that people had?
To sit and meditate on certain days. One person
Wow.
said, I'm going to work on my art this week. One person said, I'm going to have that conversation with that loved one that I'm not,
Mm.
that I've been putting off. Another person said, I'm going to sit outside in the sun in between my breaks. We talked a lot about boundaries too, which I know is our Wednesday room, but we talked about how now that many people are online, they don't have as good of boundaries because it's so easy. And I find myself doing that too, where I have a break between a session, I have 30 minutes, I'll schedule a new call because I don't have that physical boundary any longer. And I can fit this in, but we're depleting ourselves without them. And so a lot of conversations about that.
Well, after the pandemic, finally, Kristina, I could say that, 3 weeks ago, I finally made my dedicated space,
Yes.
right? That I could walk in and out of. And I've
Yes.
been taking my iPad and doing it. So I've been applying some of that stuff that you talked about in that room.
Good.
And I will tell you, it helps quite a bit.
It helps so much. It helps so much. And yeah, and there were some people sharing some really big stuff, and we celebrated everybody's intentions, little,
Mm.
big, it didn't matter, because starting off your Monday, your work week, let's say if you are somebody coming back to work with yourself first is not the normal way. We usually start off with, what are my to-dos? What do I want to get accomplished? And then there's this little tiny thing that will erode about how I take care of myself.
Well, I love this whole self-care thing on Mondays. That is,
Mm-hmm.
I like This Week in Recovered Life because I found throughout my recovery and life is that just setting this intention at the beginning of the week, it's like, hey, you know what? This is possible this week. I
Absolutely.
always, I go the other way though. I do. It's like, well, I didn't get enough. I have this
I know.
huge goal, and then I surpass it and go, well, I could have maybe done more.
Oh, yeah. My goal
Ridiculous.
wasn't good enough. I
My
know.
goal wasn't good enough. Yeah, exactly.
Because I've
Well,
killed it.
Tuesday, and I was in this partially. I was traveling back
I know.
from a trip that I had on Tuesday. And shout out to everybody that I met in Kansas City.
Yeah. Kansas
Amazing. I
City.
was unable to go to a meeting there, but I wanted to try to maybe hook up with some recovery people. But
Hmm.
I just didn't have time because I had a family commitment. But shout out to everybody in Kansas City. I know if you're listening, a big recovery community there.
Yep.
But Tuesday you had the brain room, and
Yes.
this is my favorite, by the way. If only Recovered Life just ended up producing
Uh-huh.
that Tuesday room, I would think it would be a success.
It is because neuroscience and all of these new thoughts, this thought work, we have so many amazing contributors and leaders, and we get to really discuss and having the insight about why our brain does what it does, and hearing other people having the same tricky brain, that brain that isn't made to make us happy. We start to realize, oh my gosh, I can take autonomy with myself, and I can take agency with my thoughts. And
Yes.
Tuesday's room, we started the Brene Brown Atlas of the Heart. Have you picked that up yet?
No, I have to. Tell me about it.
Okay, so it came out on February 14th. I think, great day to launch a book about the heart. And the entire chapter, the introduction is about how we have to learn how to label, distinguish, and define all of the different emotions that we're having. And, I remember being in rooms that said feelings aren't facts, but they sure are when it comes to how you're going to make your next decision, right? And how you feel. And she did this amazing thing, which I was able to go and share with this group and other people. I mean, if you're reading Atlas of the Heart, come to the Tuesday room, 9 a.m. Pacific, because we're going to pull every chapter apart. I asked the group if this is something they really want to do again, and they said yes. And we went through everything: anger. We went through anxiety. We defined anxiety. We went through fear, overwhelm, and stress. And she really
Love that.
she took research. One of Brene's wonderful gifts is the fact that she takes maybe some very, very heavy research and really boils it down to understand. And through that first chapter, this is just the first chapter, and I only gave the highlights, I started to recognize it's important to know, am I in anxiety or am I in fear? And how they both
Wow.
work. And so two things that she brought up that I want to share is that both anxiety and fear can be state or trait in yourself. And believe me, these anxiety, there isn't a general anxiety disorder that is not the same. But if you're having anxiety, it can be the state, the situation that you're in, right? It can be, whatever you have to overcome and it's giving you anxiety. Or it can be a trait, which is you have a predisposition or perpetual anxiety that works in your life. The difference between that and generalized anxiety disorder is the length of time. Generalized anxiety disorder has to have lasted for 6 months, and that affects all kinds of things. The other statistic that came out was 33% of Americans have general anxiety disorder, and only half of those 33% get help for it. That blew my mind. I mean,
See,
how many of us?
I love
Yeah.
this. And this is why we did the Recovered Life, is to have this deeper
Do it.
conversation about stuff. And I have to tell you, like, so much. And I don't even, what's interesting. I used to say thinking problem,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if everything about addiction is a thing. Because Thursday we had a room, which I want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
self-confidence
Mm-hmm.
with Unstuck. And some of the things that people with addiction issues have, people in recovery have, are very positive. Like, they're positive traits.
Right.
Like, we're, typically as a group of people, if we're going to generalize,
Good people.
very successful.
Yes.
Like, we know
Hardworking.
how to go deep. Yeah. Hardworking. We know how to go deep. We know how to, like, we love a lot. We
Mm-hmm.
care a lot. Like, so there's a lot of really good things, but I will tell you, like, the whole neuro pattern thing. And I've learned not to call it a problem from that room.
Right.
This whole neural pattern thing and the thinking thing, and what you're talking about here on this in the Tuesday room, I think is the key that unlocks the door
True.
to a way deeper experience in recovery.
Absolutely. And finding out we're not broken, finding out how our brain works and why, there is a highway of negative thoughts and a gravel road of positive thoughts. And it's the way we're set up, right? And finding that out, people can quit pathologizing themselves for having a brain that does that, because everybody's brain does that. And I really love the space that we've created there. And I hope people will join me this Tuesday, because we're going to talk about the next chapter. And guess what it's about? Resentment.
What? Oh, wow. That's going to be
anger.
good.
Yes, it's going to be really good.
And
really
I like
good.
Brene Brown. I mean, I think that is, I think that has value. So guys, you could definitely join that. A way to do that, I'm just going to put a little plug in here, is to go to recoveredlife.us, and right at the beginning, you can join our private community.
Yes.
Membership is 100% free, so you don't have to worry about that. You could just come in and you're going to get access to people like Kristina, myself, other Recovered Life contributors on everything. Like, I was looking at the notes on Recovered Life about your Wednesday clubhouse, which I want to talk about now, because this whole codependency thing, this setting boundaries, this whole thing is really, I talked about the thinking, about the key and the lock, but I think that this is the black belt. This whole ACOA, this whole codependency thing, I think this is the black belt of the recovery movement.
I would agree. It's deeper. There's triage about putting down the drink, but then there's all this work, because there was a reason why we drank. There were a lot of reasons why we drank, and alcohol has to go away when it's no longer our solution, but we still have the living problem. And with codependency recovery, it's all about relationships. And, I know, like Tony Robbins says, it's really easy to be spiritual in the cave. The problem is when you actually have to start interacting with others, right?
Exactly.
And so
right.
this kind of recovery, moving toward it, really, really helps us enjoy our relationships and for promoting self-love. And Wednesday's room was awesome. We had a coach. Her name is Alana Sanborn. And she came in and we had a really great discussion about how you start to love yourself and how you recognize, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and how you move away from it. And people, that room is so beautiful. It's called Setting Healthy Boundaries. And I think we could talk about that every week for the rest of our lives, because so much of our recovery is around that type of living. And if you suspect you're a codependent, chances are you are. In fact, I will go out and say that I've met a lot of codependents who don't have alcohol problems, but I've never met an alcoholic who doesn't have a codependent behavioral pattern. And we were taught this. Codependents are made. And so in the ACOA stuff, we can go on and on about that. But that's a beautiful program about cleaning up your history and breaking those belief systems that you probably picked up as an early child. So much of some of our belief systems are pre-verbal. And I think that's an important discussion to have as well. So
this is so interesting, because I think never before in the history of recovery have we been able to have this ongoing deep discussion.
Right.
And not just about recovery, about just overall health and wellness.
True.
I think it's just amazing, and I'm going to come back to that. I always go to your room on Wednesdays.
I know.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
I'm always in the audience listening, and you've got such great guests on. Thursday, I had a room. I have this room about being unstuck. And this is great. And I love this room. And because of my little COVID situation, I had missed it.
Yes.
One way, like it's been crazy, but we had a lot of people on Clubhouse on Thursday.
Of course.
And it was great. And the topic was all about about lacking self-confidence,
right,
or how to get self-confidence in especially early recovery. We focused just in general, but we also talked about early recovery, because a lot of people come in just beat. And they used to be the top of the world, feel that they could do anything, but now don't feel that they could even get up and brush their teeth.
Well, there's a reason why they call it liquid courage, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's a reason why we say that. And absolutely, confidence was a huge problem for me. In one area, my work area, I was pretty confident. Surprising. In all of the other areas, I had no idea who I was when I stopped drinking. I had no idea if I had value. I didn't even know how to access that. So I couldn't make the Thursday room, but I love the topic, and I'm glad that you had it.
I talked a lot about some of the coaching that I do about finding your world-class skill, how to find this world-class skill and to hold on to that, and also how to be right-sized in it, and about what is healthy self-confidence as opposed to non-healthy self-confidence, right? Because there's both. You could be self-confident your way right into a relapse.
Totally.
And a lot of people do that. They try back on an unhealthy self-confidence,
right?
Which we call willpower a lot in 12-step groups, right?
Yes.
Also known as willpower.
Yeah.
And they say, well, I've been sober for 2 weeks, and hey, it's cool.
Feeling good.
And then they're out. You know what I mean? And a month later, they're figuring out what happened. But it was interesting. On Recovered Life, I took a poll when we did it, and it's been up for less than 24 hours. And it says, do you lack self-confidence? It was interesting. 83% says sometimes, 0% said no.
Wow.
16% said yes. So it's like, it's interesting. And I maybe could have phrased that differently. Like, do you have ongoing thoughts of self-confidence?
Yeah.
But 83% of the people that are in there basically are saying like, hey, self-confidence is an issue for me. So it's good. We talked about tools, and people shared what worked for them. Wow. And I think that that's such the great part of it, and guys, if you're not members of the private community, you got to do that, because the great thing about it is your boss isn't going to be on there. Your aunt's not going to be on there. Your mom's not going to be, it's going to be a place just for you. We talk recovery, and I've met so many friends through that.
I love it. I love the community. And, we all had to kind of get forced into this, right? With COVID, we've talked about how it affected our support groups. And it is incredibly fun to meet people. I met somebody in real life who's from Maine because of the community. I met her Friday night. And that is one of the byproducts of all of that I never, ever anticipated. But it's a lot of fun.
So this has been a great episode.
Yes.
We're going to wind this down.
Happy Friday.
We've got episode 78, guys. I think the big takeaway is the Recovered Life show is rolling. So guys, like, share, follow, join us. Thank you so much, you guys.
And comment.
Have a great weekend. And comment. Yeah.
And comment so we know what you're
reach out
thinking.
to us. We want to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you guys. Episode 78 in the can.
Bye.
See you guys next week.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.